What's good, ladies and gents? Welcome back to MKO Boxing, aka MKO Pugilism, where we talk all things boxing. Remember to like and subscribe on YouTube and give me a follow on TikTok as usual. So let's get into this one. Just going to talk about the upcoming fight next week, next Saturday, between Dillian, the body snatcher Whyte, and Moses Itauma. Now, Moses Itauma is probably the hottest prospect in the heavyweight division. He's the guy that pretty much everyone is touting for greatness. They were talking about him beating Mike Tyson's record because of the skills, and this guy is definitely a precocious talent, a serious talent, and looking very much at 20 years old like the future of the heavyweight division. Very, very serious talent. So this is a clash. You've got the old versus the young. Dillian Whyte, as he says, became a father very young at 13, and he said, listen, my eldest son is actually older than Moses Itauma. So going into next week's fight, you're going to have a 17-year age gap between these two fighters, and you're going to have one very experienced man in Dillian Whyte versus a guy in Moses Itauma who is just kind of starting out, but he's starting out very, very well. Probably the most notable win is, I'd say, Dempsey McKean on Itauma's record. Whereas Dillian Whyte, you've had wins over guys like Derek Chisora. He's been in there with AJ for the British title many years ago. Very high profile, good win in a rematch versus Alexander Povetkin, and he was outboxing Povetkin in the first fight. But really and truly, when we think about this fight next Saturday, or this Saturday coming, should I say, the biggest problem for Dillian Whyte is going to be his current form, because his current form has been quite, it's been pretty terrible, really. I mean, against Ebenezer Tete, he looked poor. He looked quite ungainly, and he can be quite ungainly anyway. He's a guy that's, his balance is not really the best, and sometimes he throws these wide shots and kind of throws himself off balance a bit. So yeah, he's just not looked all that great. He's looked quite poor in my view against Christian Hammer and against Ebenezer Tete, or Uncle Tete as they call on other platforms. So yeah, for me, Whyte's looked very poor coordination. He's looked like the timing's gone, and I think the biggest thing that makes me swing it in Moses Itauma's favor is that although Dillian Whyte at this time is looking in good shape, he's looking like he's trimmed a lot of the fat and stuff, and he's looking like he's in decent shape. The face is looking slimmer and everything, but I think with Dillian Whyte, the biggest thing for me, the biggest worry going into this fight, if you're in his camp, is the punch resistance. Because I think, ever since the Anthony Joshua fight, in recent times, it's looked like he doesn't take a shot very well. And he's not the most sort of elusive guy that can avoid punches all the time. He's not the slickest fighter out there. A lot of what he does is blocking punches and stuff. And I think going in against Moses Itauma, I think the fact that at least in my opinion, I'd say his punch resistance has pretty much faded, and it's at a very low level, because even guys like Tete and all these other guys that he's fought recently, Hammer and that, they've been able to sort of hit him and sort of rock him a bit. And I think also, for me, another thing that makes me swing it in Itauma's favor is the southpaw stance, because Dillian Whyte, he doesn't particularly do well against southpaws, and I just think the attributes of Moses Itauma, the youth of Itauma, the speed, fast hands, fast feet, and he does carry punching, very serious punching power. He will do damage on Dillian Whyte. And in my view, how this fight will go is, I think at the very best, if Dillian is in shape, like he looks in shape, I think the best he can do is sort of take Moses Itauma rounds, and probably take Moses Itauma into around the sort of middle stages, around round 6 or 7. I think at the very best, that's where Dillian Whyte can sort of get to. Because reason being, because with Itauma, you got that youth, you got that speed, you got that punching power. And I just think, in my opinion, that what's going to happen is Dillian may be able to take him a few rounds, may be able to take a shot or two. But what will happen eventually is that because of the southpaw stance and the speed of Itauma, I just think he'll catch Dillian with a right hook or something where Dillian just simply doesn't see it coming. And we know that with Dillian Whyte, he is vulnerable to the uppercut. So I think, obviously, Team Itauma and his team, his trainer, they'll be looking at to land the uppercut on Dillian Whyte because he's very vulnerable to that shot. And I just fancy that at some point, mid-rounds, Dillian may do well for himself early on in the fight, but I think as the fight progresses, as it gets later, as it gets to those midway stages, I think eventually Dillian Whyte gets caught with something, maybe an uppercut, maybe a right hook, but some punch that he doesn't see coming. I think he's going to get hit with something that he either doesn't see coming or he's too slow to react to it. And, I think Itauma takes this by stoppage. I'm pretty confident on that. And it's just based on, as much as I do respect Dillian Whyte and I've enjoyed watching his career, watching him fight, it's always drama, it's always fun watching him fight. But I just think with his sort of bad balance and bad coordination and bad punch resistance, I just think it's a recipe for disaster going in against a young, fresh, up-and-coming, fast, powerful southpaw. I just think Itauma is just all wrong for him. Southpaw stance, powerful, young, fresh, fast. Everything that that Dillian Whyte is not, this guy is. And I suppose in Dillian Whyte's defense, you could say he's got the puncher's chance where he could suddenly catch Itauma with one of those left hooks. But I think with Dillian, because he's not the fastest of guys, he's not slow like Joe Joyce, but he's not the fastest of guys. So I reckon a guy like Itauma is probably going to see that left hook coming. But if he doesn't, if Dillian manages to distract him or to feint him or throw him off with something and then hit him with that, you never know. He could go down with that. But I think I'm pretty much, if I'm doing percentages, I'd call this probably a 90-10 in Itauma's favor. But anyway, let me know what you think about this fight. Who have you got winning? Will it be Itauma or will it be Dillian the Body Snatcher Whyte? Do you think an upset's on the cards? Let me know. And until next time, it's MKO Boxing, over and out.